Hey, 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 good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all my LinkedIn family right now. Welcome to episode number 12 from Unleash with Ahmed Khaled. Would you please let me know can you please write where are you from and which city you are tuning in right now? Just to remind you, our mission for Unleash is uplifting the human greatness to its utmost potential. And there were many questions came into my mind about greatness, especially greatness. One of those questions, how leadership is being shaped inside organizations. There are mainly, from my point of view, two C's that can nurture and shape leadership inside the organization. Number one is culture. Number two is communication. And today's guest is very specialized in those two C's. He was able to transform many organizations using it. May I ask you to welcome with me our guest today? He is a LinkedIn learning instructor. He's also an international conference speaker. He's the author of Walking the Invisible Gemba, Lean Communication, and Global Lean books. When it comes to the organizational transformation, then it's his game in terms of communication and culture change. He is Sam Yankelevich. Stay tuned this Friday where we will unleash doing things right the first time. Hey, hey, Sam. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey,
Great to
hey,
see you
Ahmed.
today. I'm Unleash.
Good,
Great to
good
have
to
you
see
today.
you.
Thank you so much. It's been pleasure to have in the show today. Thank you so much for being here. So, how's everything with you? How's USA and how's life there?
It's good. It's good. It's getting out of this craziness with the pandemic, Ahmed. Thank God, and moving into a new direction. Hopefully, it will hold. But it's been quite an interesting 20 months prior. I'm sure for yourself as well.
Yes, I see. But very, very optimistic about that. Sam, would you please give us a little bit about yourself? Because I believe many people are interested today to know you more. I know
Yeah.
you personally, but I'm so keen to understand that know your great story.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ahmed, for the opportunity. By the way, I love your show. It's so inspiring. So
It's
I'm glad to be on this. And so pretty much where I was born, I am actually born in Colombia, South America. So I'm Colombian, and I live in the U.S. now. But as a young kid, I traveled around the world from the age of 6 or 7 years old, um, and got to see the world. So from that perspective, very fortunate to be in front of so many different cultures and different languages that I had to be in front of. And as I got into the world of work, it was quite interesting to see how this diversity of cultures, languages, the differences of people, how this affects the way that we actually can have an impact on the way we do our jobs and how we interact with each other, and then ultimately the customer and the organization. So I worked in global operations, Ahmed, for over 30 years, mostly, traveling to purchase equipment, machinery, driving operations in organizations. But I always somehow ended up, working with people from other countries and other cultures. And almost about 10 years ago, I decided to leave my job and stop working for others. And I said, okay, well, here's my dream is really to give back, to teach people, to be able to give back some of the wisdom and knowledge that I gained over the years, that I was fortunate to gain over the years. Um, And the only problem was, how do you get out there? Because there's so many people doing this, right? And so somebody advised me, said, you better write a book, because if you write a book with this, the book at least will give you the face of an expert, and you can talk about what's inside and start a conversation with customers. And this is what I did. So in 2014, I wrote my first book. And because my background is in lean manufacturing and continuous improvement, I also decided to write about continuous improvement of one very important process, which is called communication. And this is my niche, and this is what I've been working on, for about 10 years now, helping people really get through these interactions, especially in global situations. And knock on wood, it's been good. As an independent consultant, I can't complain. And then, of course, I had the great opportunity to participate in LinkedIn as a LinkedIn learning instructor. I have 5 courses up on the platform now. LinkedIn Learning is an unbelievable organization in itself, because these courses are not just me as the expert, but the way that they give access to how to actually put these things together so that the learner can get the full benefit of the teaching, So this is, pretty much where I am. I do interim management, and so every year I get to do 1 or 2 interim management assignments, and this is always interesting because there's just so many different things that you get to do and learn.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting thing, because I know it's not easy to. You were saying that you were working in operations management and lean manufacturing, so to take this step out and move into the communication and a cultural change, it's not easy one. And I do remember your book, it's The Invisible Gemba. So
yes.
I'm so interested just to understand what is the meaning of invisible and gemba,
Yes.
and why it's invisible. This is one of the things, because I asked myself this question, and I'm so interested.
Right. And by the way, that's my 4th book. So that I'm a little bit late with new books. That was written in 2018. So first of all, the word gemba is widely used now in the lean community and continuous improvement. It is a Japanese word that means the place where the action takes place, where the action happens. You might hear, for example, also on the TV in Japan or on the radio, the reporters are reporting from the gemba, from the place where things happen. I'll say this, that traditionally gemba for lean continuous improvement people is going to the shop floor, but this is not 100% correct. And the reason is the gemba, if you're in an operating room in surgery, this is the gemba for the surgeons. If you are in manufacturing, yes, it might be the shop floor. But I'll tell you what, and I know that you are big in supply chain, and I call this the big gemba. So that is the place where the action happens. In the big gemba is in the supply chain. So why the invisible gemba is because the way I started work, you as a leader, you go to the gemba to see the facts, what is actually happening. You go and visit where the action is happening. It's not enough to sit behind the desk and read the data. You want to go see. And when you go see, you can only see what's physical. But Ahmed, that there's a lot of underlying things happening that is in the brain, and you cannot see inside the brain what is happening. And so I know for a fact that culture is invisible to the naked eye. Mm-hmm. You could see the effects, and same thing with communication. So I then said, well, then we have an invisible gemba that we have to learn how to see what's going on in this invisible space, because at the end of the day, also it's action happening, right? And so that's why I called it this. And I guess the interesting part is, in order for you to solve problems, you have to make them visible. If they are invisible, you have a great difficulty in really grasping what the problem is in the first place, right? So this is the reason why I chose this title, and and it gives me an opportunity to teach from the content in the book.
I love the information, because you're saying that we don't, most people that in the operations, they just see by naked eyes, but there are many psychological effects that affect our decisions and our movement every day, and we don't understand what is the effect of the culture and the communication itself. One of the
Right,
questions
right.
also that it's very compelling now, related to the communication. I think it's such a very big topic. It's not easy topic to cover it even in 1 day or 2 days even. But how you can address communication inside the organization, what is the effect of communication, and how can we enhance our communication in day-to-day decisions?
Okay, okay, yeah, that's that's. Let me, can, if it's okay, I'm going to tie that to the title of of your show today, doing things right the
Please,
first time,
please,
Ahmed. Yeah.
please.
So look, at the end of the day, we're if we're so you said it. Communication is a very big word. It's a very big topic. I limit it sometimes only to being at work and to get things done at work, because at the end of the day, and I hope that most people that are on the show are somehow related to a process in business, or maybe they manage a process, or maybe they own a company.
Mhm.
And so the first thing that is important to know is that we are here to satisfy a customer.
Yes.
There's always going to be a customer, either for a service or a product.
Product,
And in
yes.
order to satisfy this customer, it's not one person that does everything. It's series of interactions between several functional areas, departments, whatever you want to call them, or just people. And they have to interact to be able to satisfy this customer, right? And we often forget that. And so so interaction means aligning, it means coordinating, it means collaborating, and the underlying factor of all of these, alignment, collaboration, cooperation, is communication. And without communication, how are we going to satisfy the customer? So this is how I relate to work. Now, this doing things right the first time, by the way, this is a phrase that a guy called Philip Crosby coined back in the 1970s. He was a quality guru back then. And in his book, Quality is Free, he mentioned this. And the way I see it is, before you do anything, you have to communicate. If to either align or coordinate or whatever. If you don't communicate, then things might not get out the same way. Everybody's going to think, oh, this is what we have to do, or that is what we have to do. And this is a problem, because then things don't get done right the first time. So I usually add the letter C in front of doing right the first time. Communicate right, so that you can do things right the first time.
Wow.
And this is a very important thing that I teach and I train the teams, because we live in our heads, Ahmed. So we live in our heads, and we forget that we have to communicate. And the problem is that communication is invisible.
Exactly.
As I said before, you can't see it happening because it's happening in the brain.
Yes.
And I can explain that a little bit more. Yeah.
And most organization, because it's communication, it's intangible, and they
Yes.
don't know how. You cannot measure it based on the decision that I have, based something that got broken in the way, as you said, that because of functions, we cannot measure all of this. But communication,
Right.
I believe inside the organizations, it's underestimated. And most people,
Right.
they look into everything as a targets or just achievements, but they don't reflect what is the real cause. And I believe, as you said, that most challenges that we have, it's because of communication. Life, it's all about communication. Everything in life, it's all about communication. Coming back to our audience, we have Mohidol. He's saying, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, brother. We have Panda. She's saying from India, thank you, Sarika, for joining
Hello.
today. Great to see you. We have our friend Rami Syed from Egypt. Great to see you, brother. We have also our sister Razan Nasser, Saudi Arabia. Great to see you, Razan. We have Suhaila Aoun, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Great to see you, Suhaila. Our lovely friend Osama, he's saying, Ya salam, ya salam. It's something, it's something shocking, but in a positive way. The legend himself. Great to see you, brother. We have our friend Ahmad Ismail, Giza October from Egypt. Great to see you, Ahmad. We have the professor Ahmad Al Hambali. He's from Khobar KSA. Great to see you today. We have also our friend Salah from Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. So, guys, just please don't be shy to ask any question to Sam related to communication, related to leadership, related to culture. Please ask the question, and I will try to jump into the question wherever I see any question from your end. So, I think the first question, we have one question now from Ahmad Qasim. He's saying communication is about managing people expectation. Is it? Isn't it?
Okay. So actually, I have a way to relate to that. Let's see if I understand Ahmed's question properly. So absolutely. So to get things done in organizations, there is a continual cycle of requesting, giving information, and providing instructions for people to actually get things done, correct? And so the problem is, or often the problem is that we fail to do things up front, which means clarify the expectations so that together everybody can understand what the expectations are, and then do. We are very busy. And we are so busy that we just say, hey, this is what I need. Can you get it done by Friday? And very often in organizations, because the leader or the manager is a little bit intimidating, the other person is going to say, yes, I can do it. And this is the biggest mistake on both sides. It's a mistake on the side of the person saying yes, because they know that they can't do it. They also know they probably didn't understand the whole request. And it's a mistake from the leadership and the manager to be not understanding that the other person is saying yes only to please you as the boss. This is a problem. So if I understand the question from Ahmed, I hope I'm responding to your question. If it is about managing people to do things, then you want to do the work up front to create the expectations so that everybody understands what they are, and allow for a negotiation to happen. Because maybe the other person say, yes, I can do it, but maybe not on Friday. Is it okay if I do it for Monday afternoon? And then you start a conversation, because then the other person, the leader can ask, okay, explain to me why. Are you that busy? What exactly is it that you are so busy with? Because maybe they can change some priorities. So yes, communication is very important in that sense. And in so far as clarifying expectations up front and reaching agreements up front, and then letting the other person really do what they need to do to do this. So I hope that the expectation from Ahmed was yes.
Yeah. So Ahmed, if you need anything else, if you want more clarification, please ask on that. But I believe that everything is clarified now. Feel free to come back. One thing also to add here, Sam, it's leadership was not a threat, because I believe that I don't want to say all, but most people in organizations, sometimes they abuse the power. They threat people. And if you come to expectations, if you want to manage expectations from people and from the business, if you threat people and they feel fear and they feel afraid all the time, you will not be able to reach to wherever you want. I believe leadership, it's all about inspiration, invitation, care, listening, but not just ordering. Sometimes this is your role as a leader in your organization, not just to give orders or to threat people, or just this is one-way communication. It's all about how you listen, how you care, how you moved into the right direction, how you can help people around you, not just I need this to be done. And this is one of the expectations that I see it from my side. Come back to the lovely audience. We have Ignore. Good afternoon, Ahmed, tuning in from Toronto. Great to see you. Thank you so much. We have also Sabir from Riyadh, KSA. Great to see you, brother. We have our friend Jian. Good afternoon. Great to see you also. We have our friend for sure, Aya Fikri. I believe you choose the best name, perfectly related, Sam. I think it was the beginning of the Invisible Gamba. Yes.
Invisible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Aya. Thank you so much. We have our friend Kim. Hello, great to see you. We have also Gladys. Hello. Jamal is also joining. Hello, Ahmed. Great to see you. We'll jump into the next question from Rami Said. He's asking, is it possible to change the company current culture? And if yes, what is the starting point? It's a very interesting question.
yeah, very interesting question, and it's a very broad question. So, hello, Rami. Actually, for me, I think it's important to understand the purpose why you want to change the culture. It's important to understand the purpose of the reasons why you want to change it. And most of the time, the answers to this, because I do a lot of assessments at the beginning to go in and see, they call and they say, oh, we want to change our culture. Well, why do you want to change it? What is it? And you end up talking about the business imperative. What is it that they want to achieve? Do they want to grow? Do they want to get more customers? Do they want to go global? Do they want to have more innovation? So it has to do a lot with that first question is, to change, you have to know why you want to change so that you know then what to change to, right? Otherwise, if you just want to change for what? Just because maybe people are not happy there or there's no engagement. I understand feelings and emotions, okay. But at the end of the day, I said at the beginning, we are there to satisfy an external customer, right? So the typical steps to take, I can tell you how I work, Rami, and how I've seen other people, but there's different formulas out there. So you first have to understand what is the business imperative. What is the purpose? What does they want to do? If they want to grow, if they want to be more innovative, what it is. Once you know that, then you want to see what are the behaviors of all of the stakeholders, including the external stakeholders, suppliers, customers, distributors, the government, everybody. What are the behaviors that are needed to achieve this goal? That's your assessment of behaviors. Once you know those behaviors, then you want to understand what your behaviors are today in the company. And then you have a gap. Then you have a gap between where you need to be in behaviors and where you are today. And then you have your communication plan and your action plan to go from where you are today and your behaviors to the behaviors that you need. And this is where it could take, some time to do. But people also ask me, what do you mean by behaviors? Because it's like it's not the animal behaviors, but it's the behaviors that you have as participants in processes and procedures, how you interact between the different departments, how you solve your problems together. Do you solve problems together or do you solve problems in silos? How your meetings, are your meetings 5 hours and then everybody goes out and says, what did we talk about for 5 hours and no decisions were made? This is what I mean by behaviors. You have to look at your daily work and see where the time goes, what is being paid attention to, what is not being paid attention to. That's the behaviors. So to summarize, you go in, you have to define what is the purpose. Why do you want to change the culture? Well, because we want to grow. If you want to grow, what are the behaviors that I need in my company for us to be able to grow? Good. Now we understand where we need to be. You can dream a little there, okay? And then you go back to reality and say, well, here's where we are today. Then now what do we need to do to go from the current behaviors to the future behaviors? And it's almost a plan, do, check, act process, because then you go little by little, you go establish those, and then you have to see how effective it is, and that's how you start creating the change. For Rami, by the way, the two most dangerous words in an organization and in corporate is culture and change. And when you put those together, it's an atomic bomb. because nobody wants to change, and a lot of people don't understand culture, so they get afraid. And then, so the other thing I recommend: don't talk about culture change. Talk about changing behaviors and the work practices of the organization.
Thank you, Sam. One question came into my mind when you talk about this challenge. What if the majority of people, they are resisting this change? I would say that I would say old school or old-minded, and this is the majority of the organization. What would be the best way to deal in that case? Let's say I'm assuming that we need to have, as you said, in the business imperatives, that our goal to go for more innovation. And based on the capabilities that we have, people are just running the work. If the majority of people are like that, what will be the best action from the organization to deal with this case?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, Ahmed, and often very tough to do, because, like I said, people are always reacting to change. It's difficult. The change is difficult. So I think number one is leadership. The leadership really has to buy into and grasp the purpose of this. And I would say that to engage everybody, you have, before you decide where you're going to go, you have conversations with everybody in the organization. I go back to the Japanese, especially at Toyota. They have a process called nemawashi. Okay, nemawashi is really going out there and having conversations from top to bottom, and from all the horizontal, from the supplier until the customer. So horizontal and vertical.
Vertical, yes.
And you have, by having those conversations, you understand why people are going to be resisting change, and you understand what their needs are and how you can engage them and what you can do to make the change. If you just come in and say, oh, tomorrow we're going to change, everybody's going to do lean manufacturing, and if you don't like it, you could leave. Okay? This is not a way. This is not the way. You want to do this engaging everybody. And so you really have to do the work up front. Then the leadership has the initiating point. And then you have your leadership team, and you have your front executive management team. And they have to then roll it out and work with their people to drive this. I'll tell you though, in my experience, you will have 60% people will go and make the change. And then the remaining 40%, you'll have some people that are going to be sitting on the fence waiting. And then you're going to have some people that are rowing against the current. And this is an opportunity where, unfortunately, those people, you need to say thank you and thank you, please go find somewhere where you fit in better. But this is typically what, you can't change everybody, and so you have to know. And it's important to remove those people, Ahmed, because if not, then you're not walking the talk as a leader. Then you are tolerating something that should not be tolerated, and then you're sending the wrong message to the rest of your organization that it's okay to behave the old way.
Yeah.
So these are all interactive things that
Thank
you have
you,
to
Sam.
consider.
Thank you for clarification. We have the second question from Gian. What is the most challenging thing in communication?
Good.
It's communication.
Yeah. Hey, Jean.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So I would say the problem is the factor that it's invisible. This is, I think, the biggest problem with communication. By the way, if you look online and you look for a quote from a guy called George Bernard Shaw, he was a very famous Irish playwright. And George Bernard Shaw says the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And
Wow.
we and this is, and so because we live in this illusion, Jean, we then take action thinking that we communicated, and this is when things don't go right the first time. This is when we have rework and expensive costs and premium freight and all this other stuff. So it's really the illusion. And so to work around this, you have to make this illusion visible, change the illusion to something that you can actually see, and then work around it. And I can tell you, I can give you some ideas of what to do once you make it visible. But this is the most challenging thing, is that you cannot see it.
It's all about self-awareness as well, because
Yes.
if you don't know yourself, how you will be able to communicate with people? Because as you said, you will live in your illusion. Yes, I communicated, but was it effective or no? This is the question that we have to ask ourselves.
And so remember this, Ahmed. So in our world of operations, we have something called quality. Yes. Everywhere I go, they teach something that they say quality is everybody's responsibility. I don't know if you've heard this, but they teach the first thing when they train you, they say quality is everyone's responsibility. So here's the challenge. Why don't we say communication is everyone's responsibility?
Yes, here is the game, but again, it's all about how we are communicating effectively. Because once, if what we communicate, it doesn't happen, are we self-aware that it was related to our mistakes, or we will start blaming others? This requires a real self-awareness. Sometimes our ego takes us into a closed corner. No, it's not our mistakes. It's the other mistakes. It's the easiest way to take it. That's why. The next question from our Dr. Ahmad Al-Hambali. He's asking, is there a way to standardize the communication process to avoid mistake in implementation?
Hello, Ahmad. Thank you for that question. So funny that you ask. So I am in the middle of writing a book and writing another online course. I can tell you, yes, this is a very important question about standardizing. What I can say is that every team has to standardize their own process so that when they participate in standardizing their own process, then they will also follow their process. If you try to impose a communication process, then people are going to resist and not want to follow it. But let me share with you the most basic map of a process that you can use to think of as a starting point for standardizing a communication process. I will go back to the fact that we're talking about communication for action. So in communication for action, you're always going to have somebody either making a request, giving an instruction, or maybe some information for something to get done. I call this person the supplier, because this is a supplier of information or the request. This person is making a bubble. This is your message. Okay. This is the message of the supplier. And then this bubble, inside this bubble is a meaning, is the intended meaning of the supplier. Okay, this bubble now goes to another person. This other person is the customer. Why I call them the customer is because it's the customer of the information of the request of the person that is going to do something. Now, that person is a human being, and we have a problem as human beings. It's the condition called always interpreting. We're always interpreting. Our brains cannot stop interpreting. Okay, thank God we're always interpreting because it's made for our protection. Yes. So now you have two bubbles, one with meaning A from the supplier, and now one with meaning B from the customer. Now, this meaning A might be equal to meaning B, but often the interpreted meaning is different. What we are interested in is the intersection in the middle between the two bubbles. And then is it green is because A equals B. If it's red, then the meaning of the supplier is not the same meaning as the customer. And if they stop there, then they will not be doing things right the first time. The action will not come out. So
Wow.
this is the beginning of the process. This is the most high level process. And from there, you can break it down into many more steps that happen between the brain and the doing. And then, by the way, in one of my courses in LinkedIn Learning, it's spelled out as a supplier customer. And notice that I choose supplier and customer and not transmitter and the receiver, because
Receiver, yes.
those are machines. But
Yes.
suppliers and customers are humans,
Human.
and we all understand that. And between humans, we're not perfect. So this is something. So I hope I addressed Ahmed's question a little bit.
I love the metaphor because it's easy to be understood. Because sometimes I love what you say about the bubbles, because the bubble, maybe it will be transmitted to another level. It will not be the same bubble. So and we as you said that me as a supplier, I think that I convey it rightly, and me as a customer, I think that I receive it rightly, and then
Yes.
the confusion come after all of that.
Yes.
I love the
Yes.
metaphor.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we have the next question from Muhammad. He's asking, is there communication constraint in the organization?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think, hello, Mohammed. Thank you for the question. So absolutely. I think there's many communication constraints. And it starts again with the human mindset. I mean, I think the biggest constraint, or one of the biggest constraints a lot of people talk about, is the organizational silos. And I think that, and people talk about breaking down the silos. I don't believe in breaking down the silos, because silos have a very specific reason for specializing in what they know how to do. Instead, talk about reconnecting the silos. And so we do have constraints between that, connections between the silos. I think a lot of it has to do with language and culture. And both together, because many, for example, finance and human resources, they speak completely different languages. and when you're talking about a problem, human resources is seeing it from their perspective. And their perspective is their perspective, because that's how they're seeing the world, And the finance people are seeing things from the way they understand finance and their goals and objectives. And then you try to have these people talk to each other. And often the goals don't match, and to make it worse, then the language they speak doesn't match, and this is where you have a communication constraint. And so how to fix this is really to use the day-to-day work when you are solving problems and when you're doing your lessons learned. You have to work in cross-functional teams, and you have to have a facilitator. It's better to have a facilitator to make sure that everybody is showing the reasons why they see things the way they see it, because it's important to understand why they're seeing it. And then you have a way to understand why HR is thinking this way. And it's not because they're stupid or they are bad people. It's just that this is the way human resources thinks. And the same thing will happen with HR and the finance. At the end of the day, everybody's a colleague with unique points of view, and we all have different points of view. And this is I think the constraint of communication happens because of those distances, those separations, is where the problem happens in communication. But it can be fixed, and I have fixed many of these, so it is fixable.
Yeah, I like what you say. It's don't break the silos, but reconnect the silos. Because silos, it's not something bad. I believe silo, it's all about the capacity. When you increase the silo capacity, it's not something bad. But reconnecting the silos to have the maximum capacity, it's the right way. I love the metaphor. I love it, really.
Yeah.
The second, we have the next question from Aya. She's asking, what is the best way can leaders use to communicate with the team, considering transparency versus confidentiality?
Very good, very good. Yeah, hello, Aya. You have probably asked the most complicated and tough question for me. So let's talk about first about leaders communicating. So as I think leaders, sometimes we see leaders sitting behind the desk, far away from the action. I think it's incredibly important to make sure that leaders today go and visit the gemba, go and visit the place where the work is happening. You have to go and speak to the people and listen to the people to understand where they are, what they need help in, how you can support them to make life easier for them so they can do a better job. So this is where communication happens as far as, and then I understand the question as a leader, so you want to show a certain level of transparency, and in the words and how you present things, you don't have to give away secrets that only management and leadership should be aware of. But with transparency, you're able to explain in general terms why things are important, why things need to be done, why this, why that, without giving away confidentiality. And I think this is an art of a good leader. And if you can't do both, then you need to go and get some training, some coaching to understand how to balance the two. Because you're very right. This is a good question. It's a great question, and it's very important to balance the two. But in general, go to the gemba, speak to the people, and ask questions and listen to the answers of those questions from the people, and then you know what's going on, and then you can actually be more transparent and then keep the confidentiality. You don't have to give the show away.
I believe also transparency versus something is very confidential. I believe in the organization itself, why there is something confidential. I believe in the beginning of recruiting people, you should trust your people, unless if there is something I would say will devastate or will create a big rumors or will create a big challenge for the organization. But if it's something related to the information, you're in the same company. So the culture itself should be like that. Unless, again, if it's something will devastate the company, something that you have something very confidential, let's say company will be merged, something that will create a big noise on that. I can understand that. But confidential things related to the products or the services or the contracts itself, I believe we are in the same company. This is my personal philosophy for sure. It's not. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but I believe if we have this kind of culture inside the organization where credibility and the clarity is everywhere, here is where the company will soar up and up and up. This is my point of view.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll move into the next question. Gian, he is asking, what would you define a company culture?
Okay, good. So I have a personal favorite about that, of how I define it. But before I give you that definition, let me share with you my experience of how company culture forms, and what's important for you and the audience perhaps to understand. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you were there, Jean, at the beginning, I'm Colombian. Okay. As a young kid, until the age of 7, I was taught what is right and what is wrong. I was taught this is, you don't treat women like this, you treat men like that, this is that, everything was, this is right, this is wrong. Your parents teach you this, and then you go to school and the teachers will teach you this. And then you have this formation until about the age of 8 or 9, maybe perhaps 10. You're being culturally programmed by society. Then you go to college, you go to school, blah, 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 and then you end up at work. And so you have a Colombian, you have a guy from Egypt, you have a guy from in the United States, you have a guy from Germany, you have a guy from Mexico. And everybody says, my way is the right way, my way is the only way, my way is the best way. Okay, this is how national culture meets corporate culture. And then what do you do? Which is the right culture? What are the right values? And so this is how we live today, because at the end of the day, wherever you talk about globalization, there's always going to be the leading culture. If it's a German company, I worked a lot for German companies. If it's a German company, then the leading culture, the leading values will be the German way, for the most part. If it's an American, you'll see the influence of the national culture inside the corporate culture. So I would say that you have to keep that in mind to understand the different forces in culture. Now, how I define culture is a collection of behaviors that have formed over time, okay? And the behaviors have formed based on the way that leadership tolerates activities, rewards activities, and punishes activities. So if you tolerate certain things, then everybody else is seeing what you tolerate, and they will behave accordingly because they see that you tolerate, for example, this is not a good example, but for example, people are stealing. Okay, then if that guy is stealing, then we can steal too, right? And this is if you tolerate one thing, then you have to tolerate for everybody. Then what do you reward, or what do you encourage, and what do you discourage? And this is how the real culture is working. It's not the values that are up on the wall. What is up on the wall, it says respect, trust, honesty, whatever. But you know that often what's up on the wall is not the real culture. The real culture is formed based on what the leadership tolerates, what is rewarded, and what is punished. And then people behave, and because everybody wants to fit in, everybody wants to belong, and they see this is what I'm going to get punished for, so I don't do it. But I will be rewarded if I do that, and then they will do more of that. So it's a tricky balancing act to establish this, and this is how I define the corporate culture: is those behaviors that are tolerated, rewarded, and punished over time. So I hope that helps.
It's brilliant. So I think it's not question, but it's interesting. Jamal is saying that some companies try to show that they have great culture, that they care about well-being, and they communicate about that externally. But internally, the well-being is not equally applied between all departments and also between mother company. Let me check because it's going from here, and is being not equally applied between departments and also a mother company. And in case of multinational companies, for example, this point causes a lot of frustration and tension. By the way, BTW the teams between the team, I would say it's between the team.
Yeah, right.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen that before. I don't know if it's a question. It sounds more like a statement. I agree with it. I see it a lot. Yeah. So because, who asked the question?
Jamal.
Hey, Jamal, I have a suggestion for you. Write a book and start teaching, and go away from this company, because you have a passion. You have a passion. Go and do something different and enjoy life, buddy.
Yes, I believe also about promoting the culture, because as you said that it differentiates between organizations who walk the talk or talk the talk. That
yes.
From outside we are something impressive, but from inside everybody knows what's happening inside. It's about the culture. It's all about leadership. Yeah. So we'll move into the next question. Mohidol is asking, how to improve organizational communications? How is organizational climate created?
Yeah, there's two questions, and I think the second question is more related to culture, and I think I've answered most of that. Yeah. But to improve organizational communication, it's really bringing it up to the surface as an issue. So let me explain, for example, and this is a very, very simple, biased explanation that I have, because I worked a lot in the automotive industry, and this is one way that we were able to improve organizational communication by bringing it to the surface when we are doing the root cause analysis. solving problems. Mostly we use this fishbone diagram, and we put, these bones, and we say these are the factors that are affecting. I have not seen a lot of companies put one bone that is called communication. So my suggestion is to improve. Yeah, you make it visible, and then you ask the question: is there anything specific about communication that might have caused this problem, or that might have contributed to this problem? And in doing this, yes, then you bring it to the surface, and you're always asking, because I can tell you, in 90% of the cases of when you were doing root cause analysis, even in the supply chain, especially in the supply chain, the factor of communication has a lot to do with the reasons why things don't get done right the first time. And so by putting it inside your root cause analysis, then this is going to help improve. How can you improve if you can't see it? And how can you improve if you can't measure? Right? So first you have to see it. Then you can start measuring and say, oh, last month we had 50 incidents, and of those 50, 45 had to do with communication. Oh, now you have a measurement. So what do you want to improve? You want to have 0 incidents related to communication. What can we do? Then start meeting with people and make people aware. You said it before, it's lack of awareness, self-awareness. Make people aware. Are you really communicating with others, or are you just sending messages? Because if you're just sending messages, it's only one part of communication. It's not the complete process.
Yeah, yes.
So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Sam. We'll move into the next question. Now it's 50 minutes. I don't, as usual, I'm saying that time is flying. I couldn't feel the time. I'll move into the next question. Our friend Taibaji, he's asking, communication gaps create miscommunication between teams. It's just, I think it's something like statement or question.
Yeah. But I see a question mark. So Taijabi.
Our friend Taibaji.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, obviously it creates, communication gaps create miscommunication. That's by definition. I think miscommunication is a communication gap. I think the most important thing there is what happens after. Because if the two teams are not communicating and they're going to each do something different, they will put their energy and spend a lot of time working, and then things are not going to be aligned and coordinated. So I think it's really more of what happens when there is miscommunication is that's where the real problem is.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the first step is miscommunication, and then you do things wrong the first time.
Thank you, Sam. We have mostly more 3 questions, and then we can go. Okay, so our next question from our friend Osama. He's asking, what should be done when your line manager with poor culture? It's very interesting question.
It's an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially I can't give you. I don't think I could give I can give a general answer, but every situation is very unique and specific, and it has to do also with the national culture and what's accepted and tolerated in a company. So, for example, what should be done if you're line manager with poor culture? So, for example, here in the United States, and not everywhere in the United States, but let's say in general in the United States, you will see that people won't tolerate it, and they will speak back at the supervisor. Okay, the people will talk back, and it's not in disrespect. It's just because everybody feels they have a right to state their mind, to state what they have, right? But in other countries, it's not the same. People fear because there's this hierarchical type of culture, because it also comes from the national type of culture where the boss is the boss and the other people are followers and have less value in a company. And so it really depends what it is. In that situation is a lot more difficult for the person to reflect back to the boss and say, you're the person that is actually creating bad results here, and you can't really say it because you're mostly going to be in fear. So I don't recommend that. I'm just saying it's not an easy question to ask. And back to what you've said, Ahmed, I think leadership has a lot to do with this. Leadership cannot tolerate this. If leadership tolerates this, they're sending the message that it's okay. If leadership says, I will not tolerate line managers to affect the production because of their poor culture, then the leader has to develop the line managers.
Yes.
They have to develop them. They have to train them to change the way that they work with others.
Exactly, and also it's about the culture inside the company. If they promote these kind of things, that to be even, I would say, anonymous surveys about their managers, multi-source feedback about specific people, about them, not necessarily to mention the names, but I think it's all about also the culture inside the company, not only about the manager inside the company, how they promote it. So my advice, if it's that the company has a good culture, that they have to understand who is doing what. That if I have a bad feedback about a manager who is trying to abuse his power with his colleagues or whoever reporting to him, at this moment, this kind of feedback will be allocated and the leadership will take an action with it. I'm not saying just to lay him off, but he will understand that there is some control and people, they understand this. This is one of the thoughts. So I'll move into the next. We have two more questions. Okay. So we have Mahmoud, our friend Mahmoud. He's asking, thanks, Ahmed, the great session. This is the most important subject nowadays. How EQ impacts companies' culture and communications. Is there a way to reduce email traffic in companies? Email, yes. This is one of the I think it's very traffic nowadays after the pandemic. People are suffering for that.
Yeah, I think for the EQ question, I think it's you've answered that already, Ahmed, because you talk about self-awareness, and I think EQ really starts with self-awareness. So knowing that we live in our heads, we should get out of our heads and ask the other person and listen to the other person and work with more empathy. This is what from the EQ perspective is what I think is important for people to understand, that to impact culture and communication. And then is there a way to reduce email traffic in companies? I'll tell you what, I think I would be more inclined to ask, how can we improve the way we communicate through emails? Because what sometimes Mahmoud, I think that the problem is that we are sending emails and we're trying to get something done. And instead of sending it to one person that is responsible, we send it to everybody. We say we send it to 16 people and we hope that something good comes back, right? Or we send an email that is so long, people will not read it. And then 1,000 emails will go back and forth to clarify. Instead, maybe you send one subject and pick up the phone and make a phone call to the person and say, hey, I just wanted to know about this and that. I can tell you in 3 minutes you solve the problem. And so the email itself is not just the emails, but pick up the phone and also make a phone call to the person.
Yes.
So there's many ways. Here's what I recommend, Mahmoud. Get with your teams and do a little Kaizen event, do a little continuous improvement event, and say, how can we reduce emails in our company? And I can assure you, in 30 minutes, you're going to have 150 opportunities, and just do 3. Choose 3 and do them, and you'll be a happy guy, Mahmoud.
Yes, one of the things also that I've done in that point, because I know the traffic after a pandemic, everyone is trying to communicate over the email, but I believe it's about reflection. So ask yourself, if you see like 80% from our emails, we are CC, and some of those emails, even we don't open it. It's even not even for just for your info or for anything. Right. I don't use it. So this kind of emails, I will ask my people or whoever is put me on the CC, I will ask him to remove it, because I don't do anything with that. It's an NVE as we have it in WCM or TPM, NVE, non-value adding activities. I should remove it. So I guarantee you that 80% from your email traffics that consuming NVA, just reading all of this thing and feel that you are overwhelmed, you will remove it one time. This
Absolutely.
is my advice. So
Absolutely.
we jump into the last question. Our friend Mu'taz Yassin, he's asking, hi Ahmed, just a question. Without communication, no plan will work. Is it required to do the planning based on the levels of the staff, or just one plan but different ways of communication? Which one would be better?
The question's a little confusing. I'm going to read it again and see. Is it required to do the planning based on the levels of the staff? Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Is it Mutaz?
Mu'taz, yes, Mu'taz.
So, Mutaz, yeah. So yes, I think it's important. I think I'm reading the question is not only the levels, but who you are speaking with. So sometimes the plan is not only internal with your staff, you also have suppliers that you have to speak with. So you'll have to use language that makes sense to the level and to the people that you're speaking with. And this is, by the way, a big problem in supply chain because we live inside the organization. We have our own terms and our own lingo and our own acronyms. This thing with the acronyms is really dangerous, okay? Because we have these acronyms CTA, PCO, SNOP, and in every level, it is not understood the same way. So you really have to realize that when you're communicating with somebody, you have to bring it to craft your message so that with the intention that the other person understands it. If you want to just say the ETA is 500 hours of ZBD for 25 CO2, you want to confuse them, then you're going to get your plan is not going to work. So the message is be clear with every level, be clear with every stakeholder that is going to impact your plan. If you want to be successful with your plan, yes, you want to communicate in the terms that they will understand. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Sam, I told you that it will be the last question, but excuse me, because I see Karim El-Komi is asking another question. He's saying, come on, Ahmed, please answer my question. And
let's do it.
Suaya Fikri was asking the same. It's a great question. So can we take this as the last one, please? Okay. So Karim El-Komi, our friend, he's asking, how do we combine between doing things right the first time and the power of trial and error?
I love it.
Yes, it's
nice question, Karim. Thank you for the question. So doing things right the first time is an intention. Obviously, you are going to not always have success. And so it builds into trial and error. So I think what you have to do is you have to do your post-action review, call it lessons learned or something like this, which, by the way, is my latest course on LinkedIn Learning is lessons learned, how to run lessons learned and how to embed those in your organization. And this is very valuable because trial and error is always the learning experience. And every time you learn, then you make better decisions going forward. Yes. And then you can put that new knowledge from trial and error to change things up front in your communication and then get things done right the first time more often, more consistently. But that's a very good point, Karim, because you can never guarantee that things are going to turn out 100%. And you always have reality. You can plan, but reality wins every time.
Totally different. Yes. It's totally different.
So trial and error is very important, and it's very important also from a leadership stance to understand that you are doing trial and error and not say, you failed and failure is bad. No, these are experiments, and this is where you learn, and the organizational learning happens for the whole organization. So great point, Karim.
Thank you, Sam. This question, the last question that I will ask you personally. So I believe that it's amazing value today. I literally learned a lot and absorbed a lot of values from the questions that people ask and the great answers that you give it to us. So in case, if anybody wants to reach out to you, so in terms of, I would say, your books, in terms of your LinkedIn courses, or in terms of all of the amazing services that you have, what will be the best way to communicate with you?
I think LinkedIn is really the platform where most people can find me easy. You just look for my name, ask to connect. I will gladly connect. You can then search for my courses. My books are up on Amazon, so it's pretty easy. And the interesting thing with LinkedIn Learning courses is you can always ask questions there. And a lot of the things I discussed today, there's deeper answers in those courses. And there's a question and answer in the courses. And it might take me a couple of days, but I try to always reply to my students and interact and sometimes establish conversations like you and I have, for example, from this. But that's pretty the best way. And just as a plug, I do have one course that is up on Udemy, and it is very specific to making and keeping commitments and delegation. So it's called Effective Delegation by Making and Keeping Commitments. And this is all about this process of making expectations clear up front so that people really have a better chance of getting things done the first time.
Thank you, Sam, so much for your valuable time. It's a pleasure really knowing you. And I would like really to thank you for the amazing work that you're doing it on LinkedIn, the great courses. I got to know you from the courses on LinkedIn, and the amount of positive energy and humility and being humble, talking to everyone, really it's contagious. So really, I would like to thank you for your amazing time. It's a pleasure. And also, I would like to thank all the people that they engaged with us today. And please, I'm asking everyone on in the show today, please don't hesitate to come and ask Sam any question. I'm telling you, he's very humble, very knowledgeable, and with a great value. So please don't hesitate to come back to Sam. Thank you.
Ahmed, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on the show. And I think I learned a lot of the values from you, by the way. So thank you.
It's
lovely. But you have a great show. A great show. Very inspiring.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. I'm sure that we will meet another one. I think as we spoke about how to write a book, we'll do it.
I'll do that for sure. For sure.
We're
glad to do that.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sam. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.